Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're venturing into a space that, well, it exists more in metaphor than on any map.
Mm-hmm.
But its principles, I think, are absolutely critical to navigating the modern world.
For sure.
We are looking for true restorative rest
Mm-hmm.
in an age of just constant digital urgency. And our sources describe not just a building, but a perfect sanctuary, a kind of fictional blueprint for radical relaxation.
That's right. And our source material is built around this really powerful narrative. It's the story of a man named Daniel Harper and his journey to an establishment known only as the Inn at the Edge of Sleep.
Daniel Harper.
And Daniel, he's the embodiment of modern burnout. He's just
Right.
done.
Yeah.
So our mission really for this deep dive is to take this compelling, almost mythic story and systematically analyze it.
Okay.
We're going to look at every architectural choice, every sensory detail, every single psychological mechanism the inn employs. We want to extract the actionable principles that define what deep, genuine rest actually requires.
Okay, let's unpack this then, using the narrative as our operating manual. So Daniel's exhaustion, that's the key to entry, right? He's not just tired, he's driven to the point of, well, existential depletion. The sources note his exhaustion is a heavy, quiet thing behind his eyes.
Wow.
That phrase,
Yeah.
it suggests a weight that is less about a lack of sleep and more about the cessation of being. He's not looking for a vacation. He's looking for permission to just stop, to stop existing in his current frantic mode.
Exactly. And that state of total depletion is the necessary precondition for arrival. It really confirms that the rest we typically try to squeeze into our lives, the half-hour nap, the scheduled Sunday morning lie-in, right, the power nap, it's all just palliative care for chronic burnout. It's just not enough. The fact that Daniel had to be utterly out of fuel, intellectually and emotionally, it implies that true restoration is only possible when you've given up the fight to optimize it or schedule it.
So, if the inn is the solution, Daniel's total failure to rest conventionally is actually the catalyst. That's what led him there.
That's the key.
The journey itself, then, is maybe the most crucial opening metaphor.
I think so.
Daniel arrives, having driven until the road simply stopped. Just stopped. As if the physical infrastructure of the demanding world decided, okay, you're done.
Yeah.
And he immediately apologizes. He admits he took a wrong turn. That automatic need to apologize for straying from the prescribed efficient path that is so inherently modern, isn't it?
It is. It's that voice in our head that says any deviation is a failure. And Margaret, the innkeeper, she uses that exact admission to deliver the key insight of the entire story.
What does she say?
Her response just cuts through all that noise of modern efficiency. She says, "There are no wrong turns to the inn at the edge of sleep. People only find us when they've used up every other road."
Wow. Used up every other road. Let's spend some time on that, because this is where the intellectual friction is, I think. This just dismantles the entire premise of optimization.
It does.
I mean, we live in a culture that rewards planning, efficiency, metrics. So why must the path to rest be navigated through surrender and depletion rather than, optimization?
Because if the path were optimizable, if you could find the inn using GPS coordinates and, book a room 6 months in advance on an app,
Right.
you would treat the rest like another item on your to-do list. You'd arrive with your work laptop, ready to process the rest efficiently so you could get back to being productive. The necessary sacrifice, the psychological price of entry is the loss of control.
The loss of control.
Yes. You have to reach a point where you admit your previous methods have failed, and that failure itself, that's the signpost.
So burnout isn't just a consequence of overwork. It's a necessary rite of passage. It forces the kind of behavioral change that the inn facilitates.
Yeah.
You have to actively fail at finding rest the normal way before this unconventional path even opens up to you.
Precisely. The mapeless location, it acts as an impenetrable psychological barrier to anyone who still believes their stress is manageable or temporary. Only those who have completely admitted defeat, who have sacrificed their need for control and connectivity, only they can perceive the inn's existence. It's the ultimate form of boundary setting.
Yeah.
External reality just sets the boundary for you by simply ceasing to be navigable. The road just ends.
And what about the inn's physical location? It's on a cliff,
Yeah.
growing out of the rock itself.
Yeah.
That suggests this ancient, immutable stability. But then there's that sign.
Yes.
The inn at the edge of sleep vacancies always. And the word always is underlined
Yeah.
in this old-fashioned hand.
That stability growing out of the rock, it speaks to its permanence. This place hasn't been built. It has grown.
Like a natural feature.
It's a natural process, not a transient business venture. And that word, always, that is a fundamental rejection of the scarcity culture that drives so much of our anxiety. Modern life is defined by limited resources, right? Limited time, limited attention, limited opportunity. We are always told we must hustle to secure our spot.
But the end promises infinite capacity for rest.
Yes. It implies that rest is not a finite resource to be earned or rationed or booked out. It is a constant available state. The underlining of always is almost a gentle rebuke to the modern panic. It tells the deeply depleted traveler, you don't have to fight for this. It has always been here, waiting for you.
And the soft amber windows and the ivy spilling down the walls.
It all just reinforces that message of safety. It's a gentle transition away from the hard, unforgiving lines of the world he just left.
The sources make a really strong case that true rest has to begin with sensory recalibration.
Absolutely.
The moment Daniel parks his car, the engine's faint tick, that tiny mechanical noise of human stress and combustion, it just vanishes. It gets swallowed by the rhythm of the tide. That shift from a mechanical to an organic sound must be immensely powerful for the nervous system.
It is. It's the very first step in what you could call re-entrainment. The engine's tick signifies human effort, deadlines, urgency. It's a rapid artificial sound demanding your attention. The tide, however, is completely indifferent to Daniel's internal clock. It operates on these vast, deep, cyclical rhythms, far older than his stress. This auditory cue forces the nervous system to stop listening to the self-imposed urgency of the ego and start listening to the reliable, non-demanding rhythm of the planet.
So we're literally replacing the sound of doing with the sound of being.
Exactly. And the olfactory cues, the smells, they're immediately deployed to reinforce that feeling of safety. The air smells of rain that had already fallen.
I love that detail.
Me too. It suggests a deep sense of peace that follows a resolution, that's coupled with wood smoke and something warm baking.
You mentioned before we started that these olfactory cues, they bypass conscious thought. They go straight to the limbic system. Can you unpack that for us? Why is bypassing the conscious mind so critical for relaxation?
Well, the limbic system is the ancient emotional core of the brain. It handles memory, emotion, and, most importantly, our primal safety responses. When you are stressed out, your prefrontal cortex, your rational planning brain, is constantly trying to analyze, control, and suppress your worry.
And it's exhausting.
It's completely exhausting. Olfactory cues, smells, unlike sight or sound, are routed directly to the limbic system without first being processed by that analytical cortex.
So the smell of baking and wood smoke goes straight to the part of the brain that says, shelter is secure, warmth is present, food is available, and it completely bypasses the part of the brain that's constantly screaming, did I reply to that email?
Precisely. It's a chemical instruction for relaxation, and it's delivered instantly. It tells the primal brain that the elements are kept outside and the environment is non-threatening. That immediate, unassailable sense of safety is the bedrock upon which all deep rest is built.
And the lighting design is another anti-anxiety strategy. The exterior lantern light isn't harsh or blue or white, the colors we associate with screens and urgency, but the color of late afternoon in summer, that slow golden hue.
We're moving from the color temperature of productivity to the color temperature of twilight. We know that blue and white light suppresses melatonin and signals alertness. This golden light, however, it signals a biological transition. It's like a gentle dimmer switch for the entire organism, suggesting that the demanding part of the day is well and truly done. It slows the physiological processes down even before Daniel steps inside.
And then there's that small, perfect detail of the door. It doesn't creak. It sighed the way a well-loved book sighs.
That sigh is almost anthropomorphic. It's just the inn is a sentient entity that is relieved for Daniel to arrive. It's not just architecture, it's a container that welcomes vulnerability. And the interior confirms this with its soft corners and low voices, and a warmth that comes not just from a fire, but from being somewhere that has heard 100,000 stories and kept them all safe.
That is profound. It's psychological warmth. The inn is suggesting that its very infrastructure is built on acceptance. It has absorbed the stress and failure of countless previous occupants, ensuring that Daniel's own vulnerability isn't a burden, but a common accepted state.
It's seen it all before, and it's okay.
So Daniel finally meets Margaret. She is the anchor of this place. Her gray hair in a loose bun, her eyes the color of worn sea glass, and an accent that's not tied to any one country. It all makes her feel timeless and universal. And her smile, it seemed to know him already.
Margaret is the personification of non-judgmental acceptance and ancient wisdom. That detail, sea glass, suggests that time and stress have smoothed away all the sharp edges and impurities. She doesn't need Daniel to articulate his problems. Her eyes have seen the pattern of burnout countless times.
She recognizes it.
She simply recognizes the symptom and provides the solution without demanding a narrative. She just asks, "Long day." That's it. That immediate, simple validation is incredibly therapeutic.
The first ritual of surrender is the guest book. It's old-fashioned, thick, and yellowed, which is such a contrast to the frantic, disposable nature of digital sign-up forms.
Right.
But the ink is still glistening, symbolizing a fresh start, a conscious choice.
The physical act of signing his name, Daniel Harper, is a reclaiming of his identity, separated from his digital performance and his list of tasks.
Yeah.
The name flows out with a fluid ease he hadn't felt in months. The old, stable paper and the permanence of the ink stand in direct opposition to the transience of modern digital life.
That makes sense.
For someone who is just overwhelmed by an endless stream of updates and notifications, the act of writing his name slowly, allowing the ink to sink in like rain into dry earth, is fundamentally grounding. He's checking out of his old life and officially checking into the self.
And the key he receives, it's brass, worn smooth, for room 7. It has a little tag with the number and a tiny hand-sketched moon.
A physical key is a declaration of commitment and presence. It has weight to it, no plastic card, no temporary swipe access. The brass key is an artifact of permanence and history.
And the moon.
The small, hand-sketched moon is the perfect visual cue. It symbolizes cycles of rest, renewal, and reflected light. The moon is anti-sun. It governs the tides of rest. A sharp contrast with the sun, which symbolizes the relentless urgency and productivity of the day. He is physically unlocking the door to personal, cyclical time, not corporate time.
And here we get to the most radical part of the inn's therapeutic process.
Yes.
Margaret gives him the invitation to leave his worries, and Daniel realizes his plain overnight bag is transformed. It's now a scuffed leather satchel that's bulging at the seams. And critically, tiny words are stitched across its surface like spider silk. Deadlines, regrets, what-ifs, emails, headlines.
This is the absolute genius of the in psychology, the immediate externalization of the cognitive load. Anxiety is so insidious because it's abstract. It lives only inside your head, which makes it impossible to put down.
Right.
The in forces an honest, material representation of that load. It turns the feeling of stress into a heavy, scuffed object labeled with its exact contents. You cannot hang up a feeling, but you can hang up a bag.
The inventory on that bag is fascinating because it blends functional and existential stress. You have deadlines and emails, which are external demands, but then you have regrets and what-ifs.
The heavy stuff.
The heavy, self-inflicted emotional ballast. The sheer bulk of that satchel shows how much energy he has been spending on just internal processing.
Absolutely. And the sources note Margaret's confirmation of this. She says, "You've been carrying it a long time. Most people don't notice until they reach the door." The inn is forcing Daniel to recognize the invisible labor he has been performing. He didn't just carry luggage. He carried his entire cognitive landscape, and now he has to confront its material weight.
She then leads him to the Cloakroom of Worries, which is much larger than the inn should physically contain. It stretches into a soft, misty distance, and the brass plaque reads, "Temporary storage only." Why are that vastness and the word temporary so critical to the mechanism?
The vastness signifies the endless human capacity for creating and accumulating stress. It shows him he's not alone. But the temporary storage only plaque, that's the key to bypassing the nervous system's resistance.
Oh, so?
The anxious mind fears losing its burdens entirely because, pathologically, it believes those worries keep it safe or prepared. If you tell an anxious person to let go forever, they panic and they cling even harder.
But the inn promises to be a reliable holding facility.
Yes. It grants the anxious mind permission to take a break without demanding permanence. It respects the underlying fear of abandonment, assuring Daniel that his worries will be there, safely contained, whenever he is ready to re-engage with them. This is cognitive permission to suspend vigilance.
And we get those fantastic, specific examples on the racks in the cloakroom. A heavy briefcase stamped with perfectionism right next to a backpack that's glowing faintly with the word grief.
These just illustrate the variety of human burdens, don't they? Perfectionism is a heavy, structured briefcase. That indicates a highly organized, self-imposed burden focused on performance and outward appearance. Grief is a backpack. That suggests a burden that has to be carried on your back over long distances, a continuous, low-level weight you always have with you. And then the transparent tote filled with tiny, ticking clocks labeled Never enough time.
Oh, that one hits hard. Never enough time. Time isn't just about scheduling, is it? It's about that pervasive, visible, audible sense of time scarcity that drives modern anxiety. The fact that the tote is transparent means that anxiety is always exposed, always ticking, always visible.
And that auditory element, the ticking clocks, is the soundtrack to the generalized anxiety disorder of our age. It's the constant internal drumbeat saying, hurry, hurry, you are behind. By seeing these burdens externalized, categorized, and contained, Daniel achieves a kind of object permanence for his stress. It's no longer just a feeling, it's a thing.
And when he finally hangs his satchel, the effect is immediate and physiological. His chest felt a fraction looser, as though someone had unbuttoned a shirt that had been a size too tight. You noted this is an immediate neurobiological feedback loop. Can you explain how the mind actually needs this physical, external ritual to give the body permission to relax?
Well, stress is stored physically in muscle tension. The tight jaw, the raised shoulders, the clenched chest. These are remnants of the fight-or-flight response, but they're maintained chronically.
Right.
The mind is usually too busy analyzing the perceived threat to consciously release that tension. So by performing the ritual of unburdening, the physical act of hanging the bag, Daniel provides undeniable physical evidence to his subconscious brain that the threat has been neutralized, or at least compartmentalized for now.
The ritual serves as proof.
Precisely. It signals safety to the amygdala, which then, through the nervous system, immediately reduces muscle tone and heart rate. That feeling of the chest loosening isn't just psychological relief, it's the instantaneous neurobiological feedback loop confirming the performance is over, you are safe to stand down. This is the official start of the inn's work, and it begins with the body, not the mind.
Okay, so he's unburdened. Now he goes upstairs. Climbing the stairs to room 7 is this: vertical ascent into deep rest, both physically and metaphorically. The runner is a deep midnight blue, and it's embroidered with constellations: Orion, the Plough, the Southern Cross, that shouldn't logically appear together in the same sky. Why the deliberate celestial disorientation?
It's intentional boundary dissolution. Our mental exhaustion is so often tied to a rigid adherence to time and place, our scheduled workday, our specific geographical location. By blending constellations from different hemispheres and seasons, the inn is signaling that the guest is now in a space where earthly rules, geography, and temporal limitations just do not apply.
You're in a different kind of reality.
You're moving into a mythological space, a space of suspension. It removes the need for conventional mapping or scheduling. And the banister is described as giving a gentle thrum, as if the wood itself were purring.
Purring?
Even the basic structural elements are communicating contentment and safety, physically reassuring Daniel on his ascent.
Margaret then establishes the primary rule of the house. While you're with us, time doesn't belong to the clocks, it belongs to you. And then the absolute guarantee: no one will knock before the guest is ready to wake.
This rule is a direct antidote to the toxic productivity culture that is built on external demands and interruption. The fear of interruption, a notification, a knock, a sudden demand, it maintains constant vigilance in us. By giving the guest ownership of time and guaranteeing radical, uninterrupted safety, the inn removes the single greatest driver of modern anxiety. This is the ultimate promise of sovereignty over one's own immediate environment.
Let's get into the sanctuary itself, room 7. The bed is wide, piled with soft, clean sheets, and the description of the duvet is fantastic. It looked like a cloud that had decided to be kind.
The language there is just so crucial. A cloud is weightless. Kindness implies zero demand. The bed is designed by a scientist of comfort, built to actively facilitate rest. Their mattress is described as persuasive, and it remembers being a cloud. This isn't passive furniture. It's an object that insists upon rest.
So you don't have to try to get comfortable.
No. The bed's deep ergonomic and psychological structure is already leaning you towards surrender. It reduces the friction of initiating rest. The goal is to minimize cognitive effort. The sheets are clean, the temperature is perfect, the structure is supportive. All the external elements that usually require effort or a decision are neutralized, allowing Daniel's energy to be redirected entirely toward internal quietude.
The window view also serves a clear purpose: contemplation without demand. It frames the sea, which looks like deep blue velvet, with the moon pouring a silver path across the water.
This is intentional visual therapy. It replaces the bright, distracting chaos of screens and headlines and traffic with a slow, luminous, natural drama. The ocean is vast and unhurried. The silver path is beautiful, but it's non-demanding. It doesn't ask for anything. Daniel is anchored to something infinitely large and stable, which immediately diminishes the perceived size and urgency of his own small, overwhelmed life.
Then we have the explicit permission given physical form. This slim little book titled The Gentle Art of Doing Nothing, right there beside the armchair.
That title is a manifesto against optimization. In a culture that bombards us with self-help focused on improving or maximizing every single moment, this book offers radical validation to passive presence, to idleness. It grants permission for the virtue of being, not doing. It's the complete antithesis of that deadline satchel he left downstairs.
And the sound control is a masterpiece of informational filtering. The old-fashioned radio is humming quietly, the dial hovering between stations. He hears nothing but a faint wash of waves and distant, gentle rain. No adverts, no breaking news, just weather in the dark.
This is so critical. The inn understands that our minds are constantly overloaded by informational intrusion. Adverts create desire, comparison, dissatisfaction. Breaking news triggers a threat response and anxiety. By providing only ambient nature sounds, the inn removes the cognitive burden of processing any external threat or consumerist demand.
It's an auditory shield.
It is. It guarantees that the mind can enter that crucial state of pre-sleep cognitive fuzziness, that state where ideas drift and thoughts soften without being abruptly yanked back to hypervigilance by an external alarm or an urgent voice. The environment is actively suppressing anything that asks Daniel to think critically, desire something new, or react urgently. It's a soft but impenetrable auditory boundary.
The final physical confirmation of permission is the welcome card on the bedside table.
This doesn't feel like a suggestion. It feels more like a medical prescription for overriding the destructive mental scripts of burnout. It is. It's deliberate counter-programming to the inner critic. Burnout is often maintained by an internalized voice that says, you must monitor your performance, or you haven't earned this rest. The card acts as an external authority, giving Daniel the explicit cognitive instructions he needs to relax that self-monitoring part of his brain.
Let's detail those instructions and their psychological force.
Okay.
First, breathe more slowly. Second, think less urgently.
Slow breathing is the physiological command to the body to engage the parasympathetic system, the rest and digest mode. Think less urgently challenges the deeply ingrained belief that rapid high-stakes analysis is necessary for survival. It encourages cognitive decompression, allowing the mind to just drift associatively rather than adhering to rigid analytical thought patterns.
Then put things down without picking them up again. That speaks directly to the compulsion to review, re-argue, and resolve problems in the quiet of the night.
Yes. This addresses emotional and cognitive clutter. The inn commands Daniel to trust that things will remain safely compartmentalized in the cloakroom. It grants the right to leave issues in a state of suspended incompleteness. This is essential, because that mental act of picking up and reviewing worries is what destroys rest. The inn commands him to break that compulsion loop.
And then the mic drop, the ultimate declaration of self-sovereignty. Checkout is whenever you're truly ready.
This is the final rejection of the arbitrary external timelines that govern our lives. It respects that genuine healing follows a biological internal timeline, completely independent of hotel schedules or business expectations. It affirms that Daniel's internal state, his biological and psychological readiness, is the only measure of success. In a culture that demands speed and efficiency above all else, the inn affirms the fundamental right to slowness. This card is a profound piece of therapeutic literature.
So Daniel doesn't just collapse into the persuasive bed, he engages in an active restorative technique.
Right, he participates.
He matches his breathing to the waves, in as the water gathers, out as it spills gently. This is guided meditation using a massive external anchor.
That's the critical distinction. He's not relying on his own overwhelmed mind to generate calmness. He's borrowing the stability of an ancient external source. The breath becomes longer, slower, deeper. It breaks the cycle of shallow, rapid breathing that's associated with chronic anxiety. It's a physical pathway to mental calm, initiated by the external environment.
And the metaphor he uses is one of deep trust. The sea had been doing it for longer than any person had been alive. It knew what it was doing.
That trust is the key to surrendering the ego. The anxious mind tries to micromanage everything, including rest. By linking his breathing to the colossal, reliable rhythm of the ocean, Daniel transfers responsibility for his immediate well-being to a mechanism that is fundamentally stable and wise.
He gets out of his own way.
He steps out of his own small, frantic narrative and plugs into the reliable cycle of nature. The wave rhythm forces a surrender of the micro-controlling self. It's the ultimate reality check for the ego. My small, temporary stresses are nothing compared to this ancient, constant rhythm.
Then Margaret reappears with the tray, having took the liberty. That small act of service, anticipating his need without him even having to ask, is a huge act of care that speaks directly to decision fatigue.
Oh, absolutely. When you are truly burned out, even the simplest decision, what tea to make, what side of the bed to sleep on, is a taxing cognitive burden. Margaret removes the need for Daniel to articulate a need or procure anything for himself. The simple, passive act of receiving care is therapeutic in itself because it signals that someone else is responsibly monitoring his needs.
She says the tea helps guests arrive properly, and the ingredients are chamomile, honey, and a little something else the inn insists on adding, restful. It tastes of fields and sun and the faintest hint of orange blossom.
The known elements are physiologically calming. The little something else is the inn's unique element, that blend of acceptance, quietude, and security. The taste evoking fields and sun further reinforces the limbic system's safety cues, but the critical impact is physiological and precise. It loosens muscles Daniel hadn't known he was clenching: shoulders, skull, jaw.
That detail about the jaw and the skull, it just reveals the depth of his chronic tension. He wasn't even consciously aware he was physically bracing against reality until that tea relaxed it for him.
Chronic stress maintains a low-level physical state of preparedness that's just beneath the threshold of conscious awareness. The tea acts as a powerful chemical signal for the nervous system to finally stand down. And Margaret's definition of arrival then ties it all to the core psychological problem.
What does she say?
She says, you'd be surprised how long it takes some people to catch up with themselves. And crucially, all guests share one thing. They've forgotten how to rest without feeling guilty about it.
We have to pause on that guilt. If Daniel's exhaustion is so total, why does Margaret need to name the guilt for the treatment to work? Doesn't the guilt just disappear naturally when you're that exhausted?
It doesn't, not at all. The guilt is a deep cultural internalization. In a performance-driven society, idleness feels morally wrong. The internal script says, if I am resting, I am wasting time, I am falling behind, I am failing. That guilt is often louder than the exhaustion itself. So Margaret has to validate that feeling, name it, acknowledge its legitimacy in the modern context before Daniel is cognitively allowed to discard it. By naming it, she externalizes the guilt and gives him permission to discard it alongside his satchel of worries.
Once he's in bed, the atmosphere reinforces this anti-urgency. The unseen clock ticks slow and unhurried, more like a heartbeat at rest. Time stretches out, making space for him.
Time dilation is a signature of deep relaxation. When we are stressed, time flies because we're chasing deadlines. When time stretches out, it signals a surplus, a safety, a lack of external demand. The clock mimics a calm heartbeat, ensuring that the concept of time is associated with survival and stability rather than scarcity and impending failure.
And now the great magic trick. Daniel tries to recall his usual worries, emails, tasks, old meetings. But instead of settling on him, each thought drifts toward the closed door of the cloakroom downstairs. It effectively self-files itself away. How does the inn achieve this cognitive compartmentalization?
The mind is a powerful pattern-matching machine. The physical external ritual of hanging up the satchel has created a designated mental pathway. Think of the anxious mind as a browser with 47 open tabs.
That's a good analogy.
The physical ritual of the cloakroom acts as the neurological command. Close all tabs related to external stress. So when an anxious thought surfaces, the brain automatically directs it to the designated storage area, the cloakroom, instead of engaging with the content. It's automated compartmentalization, which is far more effective than trying to manually suppress worries.
So he doesn't have to fight the thoughts. They just lose their gravity.
Exactly. They become low-stakes events, automatically routed to storage. And because that space that was occupied by worry is now cleared, it is immediately filled by deeply restorative, foundational memories of ease. Riding his bike as a child, the sound of his mother humming, rain on the old house roof.
The mind organically accesses comfort.
These are memories tied to periods of life before the weight of adult complexity, before digital responsibility. It's proof that deep rest allows the mind to organically access and process true comfort. The inn has cleared the static, allowing the self to hear its own foundational narrative of safety.
The sources emphasize that the inn is an active agent, not just a passive structure. It subtly adjusts. The mattress gets softer, the pillow cooler. The radio slips into white noise, ensuring stray thoughts blur without disturbing his breathing.
This is the embodiment of real-time, personalized care. The inn is hypersensitive to the guest's subtle neurophysiological needs, adapting the environment in the moment. The pillow cooler, for example, is a biological signal for safety. The mind registers coolness as non-threatening, allowing the core temperature to drop slightly, which aids in sleep initiation. It's constantly perfecting that auditory shield, maintaining the liminal state that's essential for deep restoration.
And the inn's work is universal. We see how it customizes rest for specific forms of exhaustion. Let's look at the early riser, the man who hadn't slept past sunrise since he was 20. His alarm clock winds itself backwards.
That is the inn temporarily reversing years of programmed rigidity and performance. That man's entire identity was built on the compulsion of early rising. The clock winding backwards symbolically dismantles that compulsion, it says. Today, that 20-year-old internal contract you made with yourself is suspended. You are allowed to take back the years of lost sleep.
Then there's the woman who arrived with suitcase after suitcase of worries, but she leaves with only a small satchel marked necessary cares. That distinction between necessary and unnecessary worries feels vital.
It's the difference between functional clarity and clutter. The inn doesn't promise paradise. It promises a healthy renegotiation with reality. Necessary cares implies she has retained the worries that genuinely require her attention, her children, the bills, immediate safety issues, while shedding the clutter of the what-ifs and the regrets. She achieved functional clarity, not impossible perfection.
And finally, the shift worker whose bed is cloaked in nighttime, despite the bright afternoon outside, as the inn bent time gently around him.
This illustrates the inn exerting control over the external world on the guest's behalf. For the shift worker, the external clock is their tormentor. The inn literally adjusts the lighting and environment to meet the body's circadian needs, rather than forcing the body to adhere to the external arbitrary clock. It protects his internal biological rhythm from the demands of his job. This proves the inn is fundamentally a defense mechanism against an exhausting external reality.
The inn facilitates not just physical sleep, but deep psychological processing. Daniel finds a second door beside the main entrance. It's painted the deep blue of his room, and it has a knocker shaped like a sleeping cat.
The sleeping cat knocker is a perfect symbol of quiet guardianship and domestic tranquility. That door is the entrance to the subconscious, the dream garden, where the deeper, non-verbal knots of stress are untied.
And this garden is a therapeutic space defined entirely by its scents. Every plant releases a scent to untie a specific knot. Lavender for the neck, jasmine for the chest ache, mint for heaviness behind the eyes.
This is aromatherapy elevated to architectural significance. It's a chemical release mapped directly onto the physical manifestations of stress. Lavender is known to lower blood pressure and relax the muscles in the neck and shoulders. Jasmine directly addresses the chest ache, the tightness associated with suppressed grief or anxiety. And mint, with its sharp cooling scent, addresses the frontal lobe fatigue, that heaviness behind the eyes caused by chronic overthinking and screen strain.
So this systematic approach ensures that the subconscious mind is being healed through sensory input, even as the conscious mind rests.
Yes, it's a layered therapy. And in this garden, he is met by a figure who is not quite Margaret, but someone made of the same easy kindness, perhaps the inn itself. This figure serves as the final internal authority, giving him permission to let go.
And that figure delivers the one phrase every overworked person needs to hear. The world is perfectly capable of turning without your help for a little while.
That sentence cuts straight to the core of the anxiety of indispensability, the belief that if we stop, chaos will ensue, or our career will fail, or our family will collapse. The inn figure gently disabuses him of this hubristic notion, grounding his worth in his being, not his doing. Once Daniel accepts that fundamental truth, the internal barrier to deep rest, the need to perpetually monitor the external world, is finally removed.
As Daniel lies in this dream garden, the scene shifts to the constellation of sleepers, these small glowing windows showing others sleeping across the world. An overworked nurse in Manchester, a lorry driver in Ohio, a student in London, a new parent in Wales.
This confirms the inn's global metaphysical reach. It emphasizes that exhaustion is not an individual moral failure. It's a collective human condition in the modern era, shared across geography, class, and occupation. Daniel is not suffering alone. He is part of a vast, quiet network of people in need of deep restoration. This collective experience dissolves the shame that's associated with needing help.
His final coherent thought before true deep sleep is simple, declarative, and just profound. I am safe. I am allowed to rest.
We need to linger on this because these two clauses summarize the entire purpose of the inn. I am safe is the foundation of rest, the absolute assurance that no threat, no demand, and no emergency requires your vigilance. The doors are locked, the news is filtered, the demands are filed away.
And the second part.
And I am allowed to rest. The affirmation of permission is the release from guilt, the acceptance of necessity. Once both of those cognitive conditions are met, true, uncluttered sleep, the deepest healing state, is achieved.
The inn's ultimate act of guardianship then comes at the end, delaying the consequences of the outside world. Dawn considered the cliff, then turned away. Morning would wait until everyone in the inn had taken all the night they needed.
The inn bends external reality to the needs of the internal self. It grants control over the transition back into wakefulness. The return to consciousness is gentle, not jolting. It's the perfect, unhurried morning, ensuring the restoration is fully secured before the harsh external clock is allowed to resume its ticking.
So if we synthesize this profound blueprint, the inn at the edge of sleep teaches us that true rest requires specific conditions that actively counter modern life. It demands the physical ritual of setting down worries, explicit external permission to stop feeling guilty, and an environment curated to replace external urgency with an internal oceanic rhythm. It is a space built for surrender, not optimization.
And the powerful insight here is that the journey to the inn does not necessarily require a literal drive off the map. Margaret noted that some guests simply close their eyes and arrive. The inn is a state of mind. It's a psychological architecture we can access by performing the necessary rituals of unburdening and creating those boundaries. You, the listener, you may arrive simply by closing your eyes and stepping onto that quiet path of sea-rounded stones right where you are.
It's the conscious, constant effort to mimic the conditions of the inn, even when our environment is screaming for attention. It's about cultivating that anti-urgency within our own immediate boundaries.
And here is a provocative thought for you to consider, long after this deep dive ends, built on the inn's promise of permanence and accessibility. The sign guaranteed vacancies always, and the inn is waiting exactly where it had always been at the quiet tipping point between waking and dreaming. If that silent sanctuary is always available, what are the smallest, most intentional signals or shifts you can implement today to find your quiet corner without needing to abandon your post entirely? What burden, be it a deadline, a regret, or a what if, might you label and physically intentionally hang up temporarily, trusting that it will be there, safely stored in the cloakroom whenever you are truly ready to retrieve it?